What would you do if you knew you were going to die soon? It's a common question. As a matter of fact, somebody asked me the same question the other day. I contemplated it for a while and gave some lighthearted answers. I thought it was amusing at the time. Dying was of no immediate concern for me, so from a distance, death seemed almost trivial. Recently, that hypothetical became a reality. It started with a video. No matter how many forms it took, the curse always started with a video. There were some variations here and there, and the contents of the video changed quite a bit. Oftentimes, a phone call will follow after watching the video. But it's impossible to predict completely. Usually, you'll get 7 days to live. That gives me enough time to prepare for her. The origin of the curse, or perhaps the curse itself. A ghost whose name varies by region. Some call her Sadako Yamamura, others Park Yun-sa, and there are those that call her Samara Morgan. One of the few other consistencies is her appearance, always dressed in a plain white dress and long hair that frequently obscures her face. But I have a unique advantage. Unlike any cursed victim before me, I have seen every theatrically released film within the franchise. So I know all about this ghost, and should you ever have the need for it, I'm going to pass my knowledge on to you. Okay, while I will be ranking these films, they are very subject to change. Like, they're just kind of like general rankings about how much I enjoyed them. Not necessarily how scary they were or how, well written they were, just how much I personally enjoyed them. This isn't even on like a scale of how much I recommend them. Basically, I'm just going to be ranking them according to how cool I think they are, what I liked about them and what I didn't like. Basically, any of these rankings could change at the drop of a hat. So the order I'm going to be covering these movies in is just the official timelines and stuff like that. I'm going to be talking about the first timeline of Japanese films, then the second timeline of Japanese films, then the Korean remake, and then the American trilogy. And with that, let's get started with the first movie. Okay, so the first film is called Ringu. This one was the first one that I watched, of course, and I thought it was really kind of interesting. This was my first time watching it, and what really kind of got me interested in was like the kind of story it was telling. It starts off fairly slow pace. We hear about these people dying and stuff like that, and we even get close to seeing one of the first victims. However, we don't know everything from the beginning. We just know that there's some mysterious tape, and that people who watch it will die within 7 days of watching it. That's one of the most important bits here. 7 days. Yeah, I'm counting that down. Anyways, there's some really interesting bits of iconography here. Like there's the classic well, of course. There's the ring itself, which is like the view from the bottom of the well when you look up. And there are a few other things here and there, but I'm not going to say everything. The characters are pretty good too. I liked the... Didn't like most of them until the sequel. They were fine, but I didn't like most of them until the sequels. Like that's when I started really liking them. Honestly, if you don't know like this movie for what it's iconic for, or even if you just haven't seen it at all, I would just recommend going to see it yourself. It's pretty dang good. As I mentioned, it starts off a little bit slow, but the way that it's kind of like a countdown, race against time kind of film, it was really interesting to see how it kind of started to speed up and get more intense towards the end. It was a very gradual build up, but it was really fun to follow, and very cool stuff. Being a race against time film, I guess it's kind of fitting that the ending song almost sounds like some sort of racetrack theme from a video game. Like... I would rank the first film pretty high up, about right here. So this next film, Ringu 2, I thought this one was pretty good. A lot of people say that the second one is usually the worst. You know, sequel's never as good as the original, and I guess you could technically say that in this case. But personally, I thought it was still a really good movie and worth watching. It was a little bit confusing at times, but the way that they kind of explored the supernatural further was really interesting to me. And not just the supernatural, but character exploration was cool too. Instead of having the same characters from the previous film, we move on to a new protagonist who was briefly seen in the first film. And through her, we actually get to know some of the earlier characters better because of some flashback sequences and things of that nature. And to me, that was really interesting. The finale was really fun too. I think that was definitely one of the highlights of the film. And overall, it was just really cool. And then Ringu 2, not quite as good, but I think it still has a lot of value and is definitely worth seeing if you like the first one at least. So I would rank it about here. Okay, so Ring Zero isn't like the best, objectively speaking, but I thought it was still really good. This movie follows Sadako before her death, and she's the protagonist of this film. She joins an acting troupe kind of in hopes to work as a means of expression for her. Because being somebody with the sixth sense, it's a very isolating thing because she's got abilities that other people do not, even when she doesn't necessarily realize it. And a lot of people will naturally find people with the sixth sense just kind of unsettling and stuff like that. She does not remember a lot about her past, but she's just kind of like turning to acting as a way of coping with harder aspects of her life. And I would say it was really interesting to watch. And as an actor myself, to some degree I could relate, and it was cool. Of course, the ending was a little bit weird. There's not much I can say without totally spoiling it. It went in, like, kind of weird directions that I wasn't expecting. Not, like, bad, but, like, poorly explained is how I would put it. Quick side note. Something that I'll do for some movies is look up the IMDb content rating guide, just figure out what's in the movie before I see it. I don't want to, like, anything, like, I don't know, extremely graphic or whatever. So when I was looking it up for this one, it did list a passionate kiss as like one of the content warnings. Not like a, just in case, like, I don't know, some like 3-year-old is watching or whatever, and the parents don't want them to see that. But as I watched the film, there was not a single kiss in the entire film. There is a romance, and there is an almost kiss, but at no point is there any kind of kiss. The closest it gets is like the guy and the girl, they like kind of like hover close to each other, and like their lips are a little bit close, but it is not what I would qualify as a kiss, much less a passionate one. Okay, so one fun fact about Ring Zero is that the lead actress who played Sadako was actually teased by her friends for looking like Sadako before she was actually in the movie. She actually auditioned, and then like pretty quickly she got confirmation that she could be the actress. And well, I don't know, maybe that's not such a fun fact, but I don't know how I would feel if somebody told me that I was like Dracula. Unless, say, isn't Dracula supposed to be like kind of good looking though? Like, okay, well, if somebody calls me Dracula, then maybe it's a compliment. Please call me Dracula in the comment. Don't do that. I don't know. That was just kind of hilarious to me, that somebody felt the need to put that on the content warning guide when it clearly was not that bad. But hey, if that's a little bit too risque for you, then I get it, Despite all the flaws, though, I would say that this is like my favorite of the franchise. Okay, so this next one is the 2019 film Sadako. This one was okay. It was all right, I guess. Just interesting enough to keep my interest until the end, but like nothing crazy or whatever. One thing that I was glad is that it didn't feel like a total rehash. They bring in enough interesting elements to make it kind of fresh-ish. The way I described it to a friend was like, you go to the movie theater, right? And you want to see this one movie really, really badly. Unfortunately, all the tickets are sold out, so you have to deal with the next best thing, which in this case would be this movie. And once you're finished with the movie, you're not sad about the time you spent or the money you spent on it. You just come out of the theater feeling like extra disappointed that you didn't get to see the other film, you know? It was fine. There are some aspects I like about it still. The soundtrack was fine, you know, I enjoyed that. So the main character was a psychologist, right? And this was interesting to me because I'm studying psychology right now for college. It's like a minor thing, but like I kind of felt a connection, like, oh look, a psychologist. We don't get like psychologist main characters a whole lot, you know. Usually psychologists are just there to kind of give like some exposition on like a character's mental state or whatever. We don't often have them like as an actual main character, you know, unless it's The Sixth Sense, which is another ghost movie, which is probably, no, it is objectively better than this one. One interesting aspect of it was the lighting. It was super bright throughout the whole movie, like really bright, except for like, you know, appropriately dark parts, which I think it gave it a little bit of an interesting visual identity, you know, really bright during like normal scenarios, and then like dark for like spooky stuff. Yeah, I don't know if I would recommend this one like a ton. To be honest, I rank it pretty low. I'm kind of glad I saw it, but yeah. Okay, so Spiral is whack as heck. I would say I like it, and I really don't like it at the same time. It is a weird film. It kind of shifts from like a more suspense horror genre to like a more like medical drama slash, I guess, sci-fi, you could say. I don't know how to describe it, really. It was interesting to me seeing the new character was interesting. And his relationship with Ryuji from the first film was also pretty interesting. One thing to its favor is that Sadako is absolutely a villain here, but she's kind of more conniving, I guess. A little bit more sinister, which is an interesting kind of take on the character. And we get to kind of see her plan these things, and there are some interesting confrontations throughout the film. So I liked the tone that it ended on. I don't necessarily like how it ended, but like the tone and what happened with the characters was interesting to me. It's just the execution of how they did that with the story that I didn't really love. Overall, I have to rank it kind of low, because it's good, but also pretty bad. And I can't say much beyond that without spoiling stuff. I feel like I've almost already said too much already. Okay, so Sadako 3D is an interesting film, a really weird one, and not a very good one either, but it is an interesting film. You see, this one was like a lot of fun to watch while really boring at the same time. And the reason for that is, well, the characters were good. You know, the soundtrack was fun. The lighting was fun. There were a lot of blues and oranges and stuff like that, and that was really cool to me. There was also like really outdated CGI, and you know, of course, they were trying to capitalize on the 3D stuff with like some really whack 3D jump scares and stuff like that. And to me, that was really kind of charming. Jump scares don't really, I don't think they're very good. But despite that, I appreciate the effort. And then you get to the story. The story is so, man, it's like, I could not call it good. No, not at all. But it was kind of fun to watch. I don't know. It was like, minor spoiler alert. The main villain in this one, his name's Kashiwara, and he's the one who uploads this video involving Sadako. and this video, you know, makes its way onto the internet and is seen by all sorts of people, but it gets taken down, of course, because it's, you know, it's a violent video of Sadako killing a man, you know, and of course nobody wants to see that. But, you know, being a horror film, of course people want to see that. Tons of people are looking for this video even after it's been taken down, and a lot of the times they'll be taken to like a 404 error page, and this is where a lot of people give up. But the people who stick through it, they get the privilege of seeing this video and Sadako coming to them and then killing them. You know, pretty standard stuff. It's weird, not in ways like Spiral is weird, but just the execution. It gets weirder. At the ending, like, the girl goes like into the digital world, you know, the online world, or, you know, whatever. It's like Cyberchase.
Running in the cyberchase, you meet him face to face. We'll stick together all the time. Adventures in cyberspace.
It doesn't really make sense, but in some ways that's part of the charm. Okay, so of course Sadako 3D doesn't actually stop there. Sadako 3D actually moves on to Sadako 3D 2. Throughout the film we see like this child of the protagonist from the first film, you know, doing all these like weird things, like, you know, like all evil children do, like draw pictures. But I think like probably the biggest thing that made this film interesting to me was like the twist at the end. It doesn't make sense. It was like a twist that I was okay with, because like of what it meant for one of the characters, but it did not make sense. So to go into spoiler mode now, it turns out that this kid is not actually Sadako's daughter, but is instead just like a normal person who is like I guess some level of sensitivity to impending doom. So she... But this doesn't really make sense because people like Kashiwata were like asking about her, like, hey, how's Nagi doing? The finale of 3D2 was particularly interesting to me. One thing that I do wish about this movie, though, is that like being a sequel, you know, and kind of like a cheesy one with like, I mean, it already has 3D in the title. I was thinking they could take it a step further and make it so that the movie poster looked something more like this, you know, holding out 2, like, I don't know. I would say this one rates pretty low for me. Overall, I'd say the 3D duology isn't like super worth watching, but like I feel like if you do watch it, it's not like a bad thing, you know. And the more I think about these films, the more I kind of like them, despite their cheesiness and stuff like that. So this next one is actually a crossover film, all right? You take the main ghost from Ringu, right, Sadako, and then you have her face off against Kayako from Ju-on the Grudge. Well, I wasn't expecting like a good film, but it was actually kind of good. You know, not like mind-blowing or anything, and not as good as like some of the original films, but still good, you know. I think it was just like a really fun film. And I think the ending song, The Curse of Sha.NA.NA.NA, that plays during the credits, is really emblematic of that. This movie was fun because like the way that they actually kind of got the two ghosts to fight was surprisingly, I guess, not realistic, but it made a surprising amount of sense. So I liked that about it. I also really liked the 2002 version of Ju-on the Grudge. I thought that was a really good movie. So it was really fun to see Sadako and Kayako on the same screen. And yes, fighting. Most notably, I would say, is these two side characters, right? There's like a psychic who's probably like, I don't know, 10-year-old. And then like this dude who's some kind of, I think they said he was a monk, but he doesn't really look the part. I was led to believe this monk dude that they were alluding to earlier was going to be like uber kind of spiritual, I guess. So when you make him show up with like this sweet car and like eating fast food and like looking really kind of casual, a little bit miffed too, it totally subverted my expectations in a really good way. I thought it was so fun. The two of them like are a super good duo. Like the guy just walks into the room, sees that one of the people is on the phone with Sadako, according to the curse, and he takes the phone and just slams it.
I'd like to place an order for delivery. Yeah, hey Mario. Let me get a large double olive. No, they're not closed. I know you want olives. Is it Pizza Castle?
The girl is a little bit more blunt too. She'll say things like, "You're gonna die," to which the older guy is like, "No, please don't say that. Don't listen to her." But yeah, you are gonna die. So they were a very, very fun duo of characters. There's also this like professor guy who, like, he's kind of weird, yeah, but he does provide confirmation that Sadako is literally the living embodiment of a meme. Fun. The ending was a little iffy, but like for the most part, it was a really good film in my opinion. This is the Korean remake. I don't think it was very interesting. It is about as forgettable as this segment will be. I place it here. Moving on to the American remakes, we first have The Ring, not just Ring anymore. So the characters are a little bit different in this one, of course. It's like the exact same setup, so like you've got the same characters like Reiko and Sadako, everybody like the ex-husband as well, but they changed them a little bit, all right? So first off, they changed the names from like Reiko to Rachel, Sadako to Samara, stuff like that. And of course it takes place in America. And not only that, but like the American characters are like way more weird than their Japanese counterparts.
You touch my column and I'm coming down there and poking your eye out with that little red pencil you like so much.
Which immediately makes it feel more American, of course. One distinct difference you might notice is that the color grading is a lot more blue. That way it's really scary, So this one has like a little bit less of a supernatural flavor than the first one. It's a little bit more investigative, I guess you could say. Both have elements of each, but I guess this one, instead of, I don't know, it just felt less supernatural, even though there were still plenty of ghostly things going on and things of that nature. I wasn't necessarily big on that, but it didn't detract away from like my enjoyment of the film enough to like make me upset with that change, I guess. One thing that I didn't like, and this is going into spoiler territory, was at the very end when like Samara's face is shown. She looks like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, and that was kind of not big on that. I mean, I get it. Like, yeah, she was like stuck in a well for 7 days or whatever. But okay, so one minor thing, when I was watching it with a friend, we did it through IMDb TV, and it was like free with ads. So like you would have some really interesting moments where the tension was really building and stuff like that, when all of a sudden,
let me guess, you're too busy to watch this ad.
I thought it was like a pretty good remake. It was just good. Like, not outstanding. I would say it's like just as good as a starting point as the original even. It's not quite up there with the original. I mean, I might be a little bit biased, but I would say it's about right here. Okay, so The Ring 2 is like seriously underrated. I don't understand why people dislike it. I thought it was really fun. Like right up to the end, I was having fun. At first I was like kind of uncertain, but by the end of it, I was like really on board with it. It was so much fun to watch. I don't know why people dislike it. I haven't really looked into that, but I know that I've enjoyed it. So this one kind of expands on the relationship between the mother and the son from the original film, Rachel and Aiden. And I thought this was really cool because I like their dynamic. And there's also like this new guy who, at first it seemed like he was going to be like a new love interest. Thankfully they didn't go with that route. He looked like a guy from like a Hallmark movie almost, which was kind of weird. So my friend and I just called him Hallmark Guy. Hallmark Guy looks and acts like a Hallmark character. So I have to say he's an unfortunately disappointing character in an otherwise pretty dang good movie. We especially got like more development on like the kid. Like in the first movie he was just he was important, yeah, but like in this one, he was like a central character rather than just like a supporting one. And that was really cool to me. Another interesting detail is that they got the original Japanese director for the first theatrical film, Hideo Nakata, to direct this one. And I thought that was really cool. He kind of brought in some elements from one of his other movies, Dark Water. There was like a lot more water in this one. I think The Ring 2 is really underrated. I would rank The Ring 2 about right here. Okay, finally we have Rings, the final American one, released in 2017. Rings is absolute trash. I have heard of one person, exactly one person, who appreciates Rings. I don't understand why they like it. And I don't plan to, because I watched this movie.
And then I went blind.
Have you ever seen those ads for like a Hooked video or anything like that? Basically, Hooked stories have basically no patience at all. They just get you right at the beginning with like this like little mystery thing, and then rather than building up to it, like figuring out why it's scary or whatever, or like why this is a problem, why you should be afraid, and you know, gradually coming to understand the fear that is associated with this phenomenon or whatever it is. That's the topic of the story. It's like, bro, what did you say? You say you spoke to the Apple salesman on 9th Street? Bro, get out of there and don't look back. He's coming for you and he's going to eat your face off. Get out of there. And you get the point. It's stupid. And basically Rings is exactly that, just in movie form. And instead of like being like a boring story that nobody cares about, it's on a pre-established and beloved franchise. So, naturally, me and many other people were upset with this film. There were a few moments where you're like, oh, that's sort of interesting, and then you realize you have to keep watching the film, and you're immediately disappointed. This movie is just like filled with disappointment, you know? There's also like this romance aspect to the film that felt really forced. Other films did touch on the subject of love and romance and stuff like that, but this one just feels like it's romance for the sake of romance, or perhaps a teenage audience that they can pander to. Another fun fact, the marketing like basically stole the twist at the end. Fortunately, I knew this ahead of time and went in blind, but that didn't stop me from being completely disappointed. Anyways, Rings is terrible, and I rank it at the very bottom. But don't just take it from me. Let's hear what my friend has to say. So, Adrian, what did you think about the American trilogy?
Oh yeah, I love the American trilogy. The first one was really faithful, while also being a unique piece of art. And the second one was great too, because it expanded on it in a way that I wasn't expecting. Focusing more on the child and the mother's relationship, which was really good because the actors had a lot of chemistry. The first one was like really grungy and gritty, and I wouldn't say vulgar, but like kind of gross, and everything felt cold and heartless. But the second one had a more intimate feeling, which I felt was appropriate for the relationship between the two. The focus on the relationship between the two was kind of backed up by the fact that it felt so intimate, which is a feeling that the original Japanese one had, but I felt it worked better here because of the relationship aspect,
Okay, awesome. So, what do you think of Rings, released in 2017 and directed by F. Javier Gutierrez and filmed in Atlanta, Georgia? Okay, so real quick, I just want to talk about the marketing and stuff like that, because the marketing, at least in Japan, is phenomenal. We got great stuff like baseball matches featuring Sadako. Even for Sadako versus Kayako, they brought her on. My favorite one is probably the Sadako 3D2 one, where you get like Sadako and all these other little Sadakos. It's just fun.
Sadako は心配そうに見守る中、どうやら担架に運ばれての 会場となるようです。
You know, Sadako's actually been in enough baseball matches that she has actually gotten her own baseball card, which is... Sadako 3D had 3D animations created for it, which were kind of poorly designed, you know, not very good CGI, really kind of cheesy but charming at the same time, so sets up realistic expectations for the movie. Oh yeah, another one of my favorites is the Can Sadako Make 100 Friends video, in which she goes around Japan and makes 100 friends. It's fun, charming, not much to say there. And possibly the best thing that had come out of the Sadako 3D duology is the Twitter account. This is probably my favorite tweet right here. Barth. And then probably my favorite, it's hard to pick, but this one right here. This gives me the will to live. Look at that. Isn't it charming? Beautiful. I love it. Anyways, that's about all I have to say about the franchise. You know, I think it's really fun. This was certainly a memorable experience, even if not all of the movies were memorable themselves. But, you know, I had a good time, and I recommend checking some of these movies out. They're pretty fun. And, well, I guess that's the end of day 2, so I'll mark that off.